Greetings and welcome to Essay 1, Thesis and Structure Overview. Okay, what are we going to try to do here? The idea for this is this PowerPoint that I've given you. It's in technically PDF format, but it was a PowerPoint. But this way you don't have to have a PowerPoint access to the app. Basically walks you through what the thesis should do, what the introduction should look like, and some basic guidance on body paragraph structure and things like that. So I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to share a screen. I'm hoping this takes, no more than about 5-10 minutes. And then I will be sending you on your way to either the next video or the next lesson to get to work on your document. Okay, so here we go. Essay 1, Drafting Strategies. So thesis statement construction, paragraph focus options, essay structure, just in general. I'm not a paint by numbers. Your first paragraph must be this. Your second paragraph must be this. Your third must be this. I don't work that way. I don't think that's an effective way to teach because in the long run, especially for English 1B, there are as many different ways to write the essay as there are students in this class, as there are students at RCC. Okay, so the thesis statement, we'll start there. Active verbs. I am a huge fan of active verbs. This is something that was taught to me later in my own literary analysis English major life, so it's something that I try to incorporate earlier on. Active verbs express action. They say what something is doing rather than just what something is. Okay, the examples I give here. People should run for their physical and mental health, right? That's an active statement rather than simply saying running is healthy. Okay, so one says what something is, the other says what something does. And it's that something does thing that we want to focus on. So for your poetic analysis, I need you to tell me what your poems are doing. What are they trying to convey? What ideas are they trying to express? What argument? And we're going to be using this active verbs focus for the entire semester. Okay, so next one, prioritize the poems, not the poets. We're not as terribly concerned about the poets because we don't know them very well. What we have is their work. What they intended that work to express is almost irrelevant. It's really what we are getting from the work and what we can demonstrate through quotation and analysis is expressed in the work, at least could be, is a valid interpretation, rather than saying this poet meant to do exactly this thing. We're not in their heads. We don't know what it is they exactly were trying to convey. So we're not going to try to get too bogged down in poets, instead focusing on poems. First example of a thesis statement. These poems reject our patriarchal society's assumptions about prescribed gender roles, offering a harsh critique of both masculine dominance and female submission. So notice these poems reject. The poems, not the poets, and reject. That's an action. They are rejecting these assumptions. Okay. Next version. These poems demand, right? So now again, the poems demand. By the way, why do I get to say these poems? Because earlier in my paragraph, in my intro, I've already given you the poets and the poem titles, so I don't need to express them in my thesis, right? They demand a reckoning with America's racist past and present, emphasizing the pain and injustice experienced by people of color over our nation's history. Okay? Again, the idea is the focus here, not the poets, right? The poems and what they are trying to do. Okay. General idea about your introduction. Start your introduction by offering some discussion of the central concept in multiple sentences. So if you are working with assumptions about female submissiveness and weakness and how you want to basically say these poems are pushing back against that idea, trying to reject that idea, start by talking about what society thinks of the quote unquote place that women or role that women should be occupying. Then you say, okay, this idea, society telling women to stay in this box, which, sucks. In that way, you then shift to say, okay, those ideas are being explored in these poems. And then you bring in the poem and the poet and the next poem and the next poet, and you talk about them for a little bit. Probably a couple sentences on each poem, just a general overview of what they're trying to do. And then you get to your thesis statement at the end. So there's this important idea about, society assumes women should take on weak roles of submissiveness and compliance. And terrible idea. These poems are wrestling with that and trying to point out how women are much stronger than society believes they can be or whatever. And then you give your thesis statement at the end. Okay, so general overview for multiple sentences of your talking about your theme, then multiple sentences talking about your poets and poems, then you give me your thesis statement. That is a good solid introduction. Almost always you're going to want to end your introduction with your thesis statement. Okay, now for the body paragraph structure. So a couple things here that we want to really make sure we understand. Number one, let's say you've chosen to write on 3 poems. You will not have paragraph 1 on poem 1, paragraph 2 on poem 2, and paragraph 3 on poem 3. Absolutely not. What you need to do instead is have your first, let's say we were going with society assumes women are weak and submissive and compliant, and that's something that these poems are rejecting. First, maybe it's going to talk about women are much stronger than society gives them credit for. And maybe that's my focus for body paragraph number 1. And whichever poems that I've chosen that fit, I bring them in. Okay. Next, men are not nearly as successful as they believe they are, right? And women have more success and ability to contribute. Maybe that's my second paragraph. And I'll bring in whatever poems need to be brought in. Third, fourth, fifth idea. Notice again that what I'm doing is not saying this poem says this about women and submissiveness. Next paragraph, my second poem says this. I'm not doing that. What I'm doing instead is saying this main idea of women, submissiveness, social assumptions about women's weaknesses and what their proper role is. Now all my body paragraphs are organized off of that idea. Okay, and I bring in multiple poems, more often than not, multiple poems in each paragraph. This poet says this, Gilman says this, Castillo says this, that kind of thing. Okay. The actual sequence of what you put your idea, what order you put your ideas in, entirely up to you. Okay. What makes sense to you is almost always going to be correct. So I trust you guys on that. It's very rare for me to say this paragraph needed to be earlier. That just doesn't happen. Most students understand how they should be sequencing and developing their ideas. So it works out just fine to put it in whatever order you want, as long as you're keeping in mind that your 4 or 5, ideally 5, but 4 minimum body paragraphs are covering different aspects of your thesis focus, your thematic focus for the essay that you're talking about in your thesis statement, not one on one poem, one on the next. I know I'm harping on that, but it's a common mistake, and students often overlook this part of my instruction. Okay. That's it. All right. So what does this all mean? Conclusion, we'll get to that later. Focus on ideas. Introduction starts with your thematic focus. When you talk about your poems and first bring them in, tell us a little bit about what they're trying to wrestle with. What ideas are they developing? Then ultimately, what are these 2 works or 3 works? Argue. What are they trying to do? Reject, deny, encourage, develop, push, promote, whatever. Okay, strong actions. Individual body paragraphs, each one focused on some subtopic of your larger thesis statement. Think of this in the same way you would with like a 1A paper on the death penalty. Your first paragraph is going to be one reason why the death penalty should be abolished. Your second one is not going to be on that same thing. It's going to be, here's one reason why, here's another reason. So it's racist, which it is. And so that's one paragraph. And the next one is it's too violent and it's not necessarily, humane. Third one might be it's not an effective deterrent. It's just straight up punishment. We want to kill somebody for what they did. And so you give us your body paragraphs. Notice each one of those is a subcategory of the larger topic that you would do in a 1A class of capital punishment is wrong and it needs to go away. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up because I don't want these to stray too long. I know your attention span isn't necessarily going to be up for hearing me chat for 20 minutes. So cutting it here.